Ralph, there are some clear winners and there are some schools that are clear losers in this final ranking here. What are you seeing?
Joe, I think the committee got the right 12 teams. My biggest issue with the committee is there is no way in hell Boise State is a top 4 team in college football. I have them ranked number 27. And again, I think Penn State has the easiest path, first 2 rounds. They're over a touchdown favorite in round 1, and I would make them a 10-point favorite at Boise State in round 2. That's how much I think the committee has it wrong.
We, Ralph, did not see one conference championship game with a favorite of a touchdown or more. I'm looking at some of these numbers here, Ralph, in these early games coming up, and my goodness, that's not the same situation, is it, here with this first round, these first round games?
Absolutely not, Joe, but it makes sense. A conference final is basically 1 and 2. When we're talking the 12 seeds, we're basically talking the number 1 team in the SEC compared to like maybe this number 6 team in the SEC, and you'd always have a touchdown edge in there. But let's run down those 4 games, and I'm going to give you what my power rating numbers are. Now, again, this is early in the process. Injuries, matchups, things change. But based on my power rating numbers, Penn State is the first game. Oh, excuse me. Notre Dame's the first game. The WagerTalk live odds screen, WT.buzz/odds, has Notre Dame 7.5 and 50. I actually make the Irish an 8-point favorite.
Wow, that's right off the bat. All right, so the Irish, ironically enough, Ralph, that game, those 2 teams not that far from one another, and they don't play each other very often. I believe the 90s was the last time they actually went head-to-head there, but 7.5, you think there's some value there? What about the Penn State SMU spot here? Any value with your power ratings there?
No, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, Penn State 9 and 53.5. I only make Penn State 7.5. I clearly do not respect them as much as most people. I think this SMU team is solid, and I'm not sure if the times are set. It's listed first in the schedule. That's a big disadvantage for Penn State not having a night game for the whiteout. I would have added another 2 points of home edge for the Nittany Lions if it is a night game.
Yeah, night game. It's a noon game. It's a noon game, I believe. Yeah, so it's a noon game. Yep, noon spot there. That's Saturday the 21st. Texas and Clemson, Ralph, we got no history because I don't believe they've ever played one another, if how ironic that is. But yet, again, another double-digit favorite here with Texas. Does that jive with your numbers?
I make Texas 13. So
wow.
Does it seem ludicrous to lay 13 points to Clemson? Yes, it does. Well, but when you break down their season, remember, they won on a last-second field goal against SMU. Had they lost, they wouldn't even been here. I think the number's legit. I actually lean Texas with the early number.
And, of course, Tennessee, Ohio State, Ralph, that'll round it out there on Saturday the 21st. 7.5, Ohio State. And we mentioned it off air, and it bears repeating here. I mean, congratulations on the undefeated season, Oregon. But, God, did they not get the worst draw? I mean, in all likelihood, they're going to have to take on either Ohio State or a big SEC team in Tennessee. The path for Oregon as a number 1 seed, Ralph, not great at all by them.
Well, Joe, again, that has something to do with them putting Boise 4. If Boise were below and they were playing Boise, you're talking about a 14-point difference in the line. So because the committee made Boise 4 and dropped those other teams down, that changes the effect of the number 1 seed and not getting a clear path. The college basketball guys that make the seedings are very used to this, and they give those number 1 seeds a fair path. Here, I think they just sort of played it out in what they thought they had to do. In that game, I will tell you this. Had Ohio State beaten Michigan, I would have made this game 10.5. But my eye test watching Ohio State struggle against Michigan, I only make the Buckeyes 6.5. So for me, being a Buckeye fan, being less than this, I actually lean Tennessee. Doesn't mean Ohio State can't turn it around, but the eye test and the mind test on how Michigan manhandled them for a 4th straight year just had me drop their power ratings that much.
Should be an interesting very first 12-team playoff here in college football. We'll have much more on this as we move along. And a big shout out to the chat room, by the way. Bill Seibert in there, FB Coach, Michael Hibbs, Andrew back in the house, Titan CT. Always a pleasure to see you guys. Don't forget, that thumbs up would be much appreciated, as well as hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already and become part of that WagerTalk TV family. Because, Ralph, now that we've got playoff college football, that means bowl games are almost upon us here, and we're starting to see some numbers. Very interesting guide here on this graphic that you have been showing us. Talk to us here on some of these early numbers on some of these bowl games here. What are some of the biggest discrepancies you're seeing?
Well, guys, just head to my homepage at WagerTalk, wt.buzz/RM. I have a one-page PDF that you can print, has every college football bowl game with the lines. Now, we know the lines are going to change significantly, but it's important to know what the lines were on this Monday. So when there's injuries, when there's opt-outs, when there's sharps betting sides, you can figure out, was that a sharp move? Was that because people opted out? Was that because of clustering? Even if you don't want to use the guide, make sure you stay tuned in and log every 2 or 3 days, Joe. I actually write in the new lines to keep track of what the line moves are. Again, these are just based on my power ratings. I have not started to deep dive into these games, but the 3 biggest games, Joe, that have a disparity in my mind: Michigan against Bama. There's truly only one team that had a bubble burst this year. You know, the SEC or the Big Ten team that lost the conference championship in the past often played poorly in the bowl because they were disappointed to not get to the championship or to the Final Four playoffs. I think Bama is the only true team that is actually disappointed here. In that game against Michigan, the line opened 11.5. I make Bama 6. I think there's a 5.5 point edge with the Michigan Wolverines in there. If Johnny's listening in Detroit right now, he's saying, did Ralph just say he's leaning with Michigan? I know that's what he's thinking in his head. The other 2 biggest disparities: I think Florida is way too big of a favorite against Tulane. They're playing in Tampa Bay. You know, they're an 11.5 point favorite. I make that game much closer to 4 or 5 with the Gators. Yes, you get a 1 point home edge bump from me playing in state. But again, this is still a Florida team that hasn't proved to me they're going to get margin against a very well-coached team in Tulane. Tulane's head coach was thinking about going to North Carolina. He said today that he's going to stay put as the Tar Heels continue to talk to that guy named Belichick, who coached somewhere before. And the third biggest disparity for me, NC State in the Military Bowl. They're laying 5. I make the line 9.5, so a 4.5 point edge for me for NC State against the Pirates of East Carolina up in Annapolis, Maryland.
So some dude named Johnny Detroit in the chat just put "Go Blue." I wonder who that might be, Ralph. He is always listening. The guy's got he's got ears and eyes everywhere, and there he is. Go Blue! Shocker, absolute shocker. All right, Ralph. So a lot of different ways, and we'll have a lot of content coming up, guys, over the next week about approaching these bowl games. A lot of edges to be had, Ralph. A lot of bad numbers, like you mentioned early on. How about an early bowl play from you? We've got one actually coming up, I believe, the Veterans Bowl, Montgomery, Alabama, with Western Michigan and South Alabama. Is there a play or a side you like in that game?
Yeah, well, let me bring this up first, Joe. People often ask, is there a favorite edge? Is there a dog edge? Is there an over edge? Is there an over edge? When I went through the last 3 years in the database, favorites are 1 game over 500. Overs are 1 game over 500 collectively for the last 3 years. So there are no patterns. But one pattern that does hold true, Joe, double-digit dogs in bowl games since 2011 are 66.7% against the spread. That is pretty powerful. You're talking about, excuse me, I misspoke there, Joe. They're 61.5% against the spread. If that double-digit dog is off a loss, that's when it moves to the 66.7%. So I do like Western Michigan, which is this Saturday. There's only 2 games on Saturday, Army, Navy, and this first bowl game. So we have a situation where Western Michigan is a decent, a well-coached team. They lost a couple games down the late. The offense really struggled. But MAC as a whole, I was surprised at this. I went back the last 6 years. MAC dogs in the bowl games are 13-6, 68%. The double-digit dogs, 61.5%. And if you say, wow, that South Alabama has had back-to-back big games, put up 35 points in each of their last 2 games, that is not a positive. Teams prep for those teams off high-scoring games since 2012. When a bowl team is off back-to-back games scoring 35% or more, they're only 34.7% against the spread, going 40 and 75 ATS, a big sample size. I will happily grab the early double-digit dog off a team with 35 points in back-to-back games. MAC has proven that they're solid as a dog. So to me, it lines up. It has potential to be my first client release for the bowl season.
I love it. And I believe, like Roger Long said, the Stat Daddy hitting the ground running in college football bowl season. That is how you make money, guys. That's how you make money during bowl season is get on it. Don't let these numbers get stale. Don't let the market dictate. If you like something, get on it. And Ralph, great opportunity right now for bowl season with you and actually any of the handicappers at WagerTalk.com. 149 right now, all access bowl, right? Every bowl play from your favorite handicappers, just 149 right now. And no doubt, Ralph, you're going to be extremely busy this bowl season, aren't you?
Oh, it is awesome. I am excited. I will tell you this. Traditionally, I would probably bet 70% of my bowl games the first 2 or 3 days of releases. But with all the opt-outs, and now remember, if a coach gets fired or leaves, like Marshall's coach who went to Southern Miss, seems like sort of a parallel move to me, but who knows? Remember, even if the player is out of his transfers, he's allowed to transfer now because of the rules. So we're going to see more transfers. We're going to see more opt-outs. We're going to see more people that are going to new places to get NIL money. So I'm a little more conservative early on in the bowl season. But again, when I make up my mind, I'm going to bet again, grab that number early, as you said, 149. Every bowl play from now through the national championship. And the bowls are extended now. I think the national championship is Monday, January 20th. That gives us a few extra weeks of college football value this first season of the playoffs.